Well, we're joined now by Dan Reed, who's the director of the documentary. Dan, morning to you.
Morning.
So who's Dan Reed? Dan Reed is a British documentary filmmaker known for confronting emotionally charged, politically sensitive, and legally dangerous events. He began as a war correspondent before moving into long-form documentaries and founding his own production company, Amos Pictures. Reed's documentaries are powerful because he blurs the line between witness and storyteller, using first-hand testimony and real-time evidence to place the audience inside an event rather than watching from distance. In Leaving Neverland and 4 Hours at the Capitol, he built emotional truth not through narration or reenactment, but by allowing survivors and participants to construct the story through memory, footage, and time. This essay explores how his focus on testimony, strict structure, and ethical risk-taking creates documentaries that are immersive, controversial, and impossible to ignore.
A couple more shots in. Okay. So you know what I want you to do? Be really brave. I want you to jump up so that you jump as high as you can so you and Mike are the same height. On a count of 3. Okay? 1, 2, jump! Cool. All right. I blinked up.
Dan Reed doesn't interview the whole world. He chooses a few people, the ones who lived through it, and gives them the entire stage. In Leaving Neverland, the story belongs to just 2 men, Wade Robson and James Safechuck. No legal experts, no psychologists, no relatives of Michael Jackson defending the other side. Just the witness and their memories. The film stays with Robson and Safechuck alone, not because the other voice doesn't exist, but because adding them would shift the focus away from their testimony. He asks his subjects to go further than most documentaries do, not just recalling what happened, but describing it in a slow, uncomfortable detail. He doesn't interrupt, he doesn't cut away, and that's why it feels like they're not just witnesses, but storytellers. The same happens in 4 Hours at the Capitol. Reed doesn't bring in historians or analysts. Instead, we hear from police officers, congressional staff, journalists, and even the writers themselves. Each person explains exactly what they thought they were doing in that moment. This is Reed's gamble. By narrowing his focus so intensely, he creates emotional truth. But he also opens the door to criticism. Is it documentary or is it testimony? If technique 1 is about who speaks, technique 2 is about when things happen. Reed builds his documentaries like ticking clocks. Everything unfolds in the exact order it was left. In 4 Hours at the Capitol, the entire film takes place between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. on January 6th. No flashbacks, no political commentary, just time. Moving forward. Body cam footage, phone videos, security cameras, police radio, and every interview is tied back to the same clock. Where were you at 2:13? What did you hear at 2:20? The effect is suffocating, not because Reed tells us it's chaotic, but because we feel it happening in real time. Even in Leaving Neverland, where the events stretch across decades, time still leads the story. Childhood admiration, private bedrooms, courtrooms, adult silence, and then, finally, the decision to speak. Reed doesn't jump around emotionally. He follows the quiet collapse of 2 lives, step by step. Time becomes his narrator, and when the time is the narrator, there's no place for opinion. Only sequence, memory, and consequence. Most documentaries try to hold your attention with movement. Music, graphics, fast edits. Dan Reed does the opposite. He holds your attention by staying still. His camera barely moves. Interviews are centered. Rooms are ordinary. There's no dramatic lighting, no swelling soundtrack, just a person, a chair, and a memory. In Leaving Neverland, Reed leaves in the silences. He allows tears to fall, without cutting away. He trusts that the quiet is more powerful than any score could ever be. In 4 hours at the Capitol, even when the footage is chaotic, Reed doesn't stylize it, he doesn't add dramatic music, he lets shaky phone footage and raw breathing speak for themselves. Reality is messy, so he lets it stay messy. This restraint is his signature. The frame sits quiet, so the testimony can be loud.
All the way. It's just like bedlam, sheer bedlam. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about law or anything like that. That's it. This is awesome. Nobody gives a fuck, man. Hell yeah. Holy shit.
Telling stories about terrorism, sexual abuse, or political violence isn't just a creative challenge. It's a legal and moral risk. Dan Reed knows this more than most. His documentaries exist in dangerous territory. In Leaving Neverland, he is accusing one of the most famous men in the world of one of the most serious crimes. In 4 hours at the Capitol, he is showing Americans attacking their own democracy, often using footage filmed by writers themselves. Lives, reputations, even court cases are affected by what he chooses to show or not to show. Because of this, Reed's work involves intense legal preparation. Every interview, every photograph, every claim made by a witness is cross-checked by lawyers and researchers. He has said publicly that he stands by every second of his films, because every second has been verified, either through testimony, archived material, or legal documentation. But duty of care isn't just about facts, it's about people. Reed has a responsibility to the survivors who speak in his films. In Leaving Neverland, he gave Wade Robinson and James Safechuck space to speak on their own terms. But he also has to protect them, emotionally, psychologically, and legally. The crew reportedly allowed breaks during interviews when the subjects were overwhelmed. No questions were asked off camera without consent. The trauma was not pushed for sensationalism, but for truth. And yet, telling the truth has consequences. After the release of Leaving Neverland, Reed received hate messages, lawsuits from Michael Jackson's estate, and even threats to his safety. The estate accused him of creating a public execution without a trial. Reed responded to that his film is not a court, it's a platform for testimony. Even in 4 hours at the Capitol, the fallout was serious. Some politicians refused to cooperate. Some writers who appeared in the film were later arrested, using the footage shown in the documentary. Reed doesn't hide the consequences of telling the truth. He films them. So when we talk about Dan Reed's style, we aren't just talking about camera angles or editing. We are talking about responsibility. The responsibility to the audience, to the people who lived it, and to history. Reed doesn't just capture them. He enters into it, legally and ethically, and accepts whatever comes after. Dan Reed's documentaries are powerful, but they are also controversial. And the reason is simple. He doesn't try to be neutral. In Leaving Neverland, Michael Jackson never speaks. There's no lawyer from his estate, no family member defending him. The film belongs entirely to Wade Robson, James Safechuck, and their families. For some, that's honesty, giving space to voices that are ignored for decades. For others, it feels like a courtroom with only one side present, intense, emotional, but missing cross-examination. Reed has been accused of constructing truth rather than discovering it, of creating powerful, persuasive narratives that may leave out complexity. Jackson's estate called the film a public execution without a trial, but Reed's response is always the same. He isn't making investigative journalism. He is making testimonial cinema. His question isn't, can this be legally proven? It's, what is it like to live in this memory? In 4 hours at the Capitol, the criticism shifts. Here, Reed does include multiple sides: police officers, politicians, journalists, and even writers themselves. But again, he refuses to explain or morally judge them. He lets them speak. Some viewers say this gives extremist voices too much space. Others say it's the only honest way to show that what really happened, by allowing people to condemn themselves with their own words. So the question becomes, does Reed reveal the truth, or does he stage it through silence, omission, and structure? Is the testimony enough to count as documentary, or does leaving out the opposite voices automatically make it biased? This is where Reed's cinema lives, not in certainty, but in tension, between witness and storyteller, between truth and belief, between remembering and proven. And maybe this is the point. Reed doesn't ask us to like his films. He doesn't even ask us to believe him. He asks us to sit with our evidence, to face the people who were there, and then to decide for ourselves what and who we believe.